Trust the Profits is proud to be sponsored by Game of Silks. Go to silks.io to get in the game. Real ownership, real races, real rewards.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Trust the Profits YouTube page. My name is Colin, Sheehan. This is Doubling Down. Please like and subscribe. It does so much for our channel and the support of us. And speaking of that support, we now have a great partnership with the Game of Silks. You can check out below in the description a link to the Game of Silks and a description of what the game is. You'll start seeing some new content across the channel, including El Hombre and my 101 with the basics with Kings Point Stables. We're going to start dropping some 101 videos to educate the horse players about what Game of Silks is. I think it's an unbelievable opportunity for this sport to grow into a new way. I'm involved with a couple of horses, two of my own, the Speedy One, who's with the Jack Lachenbach Stables, which is being liquidated on Fasig-Tipton. So something I'm paying attention to that I never would have regularly. I mean, this is something that the game has done for me. I'm watching Maiden Claimers up at Delta Downs on a Thursday night, and it's adding a unique perspective to the game. Let's get back to what happened on Doubling Down last week when we had Jeff from Charting Horse Values here on the show. And look at this, a $346 pick four on a $49 ticket. He, of course, explained how to play the A's and the B's on that episode. Normally, we do daily doubles on this show, and of course, we had to play the pick four with Pegasus. I got a little smart trying to get past Warm Heart. National Treasure, a lot of people tried to get by, and he actually showed the ability to finally pass some horses in the stretch. But my boy, Senior Buscador, Doubling Down phenomenon, flying at the end. That horse just wants more and more distance. Obviously, in the Cigar Mile, there wasn't enough distance. He was coming late, just didn't have enough time to close, and almost caught National Treasure there in the Pegasus. A great weekend of racing. So let's turn the page because we now have an unbelievable weekend when it comes to the Kentucky Derby prep races. We have 4 races on the docket, 20 points to the winner of these. We go to Aqueduct for the Withers Stakes, Oaklawn for the Southwest, which was moved because of the weather, which is now why you have 4 races this weekend. There's only one other weekend in the Derby prep schedule when you'll have 4 races. So us handicappers, we are busy as we go through these 4 races. Sandra Anita's got the Robert B. Lewis, and then Gulfstream has the Holy Bull with the return of Fierceness, who in your Kentucky Derby standings finally has some company atop with Track Phantom, who picked up the victory in the Lecomte. They both have 30 now, but Fierceness has been on the bench since the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. This episode of Doubling Down, I'm going to welcome in one of your very special friends from the lounge, and we are going to look at the daily double for Holy Bull Day at Gulfstream Park. This is Doubling Down, and I'm Colin Sheehan. That's right, I welcome in our good friend Keith each and every stride on Twitter, who has Keith's value plays right here on Trust the Profits. And Keith, you had a very good week. Let's let the viewers know what you hit this week.
Thank you so much, Colin. Appreciate you having me on, and you got me pumped up with your intro there with this, with these horses and the stakes races. I had a great hit of the last horse in the stakes race Monday at Turf Paradise. That was Prince of A. Carlo, an 8-year-old classy gelding that was actually entering the Justin Evans barn. He actually raced in a stakes race at Santa Anita. So I really like the recency in the class, and we actually got 5-1. So that's one of the big premises of my show, Keats Cash Plays, is we're looking to find that value. And so it's nice to get a 5-1 in a wide open field. So very nice result to handicap that race correct.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great show that you have, that you put together, looking through cards and finding the value, right? That's such an important part of gambling and such an important part of horse playing. Keith, before we get to this week's show, I've got to ask you, we got all these stories circling on Twitter from people complaining about influencers at the Pegasus, which I don't even want to get into. We can save that for another day because that stuff's all just foolish to me. But the Bob Baffert news is one that we certainly have to take note of as we go into this weekend of preps. And of course, Bob Baffert owners have decided to keep their horses with Bob, and therefore those horses are not going to be eligible to run at Churchill. What's your initial thought to this?
You know, as I look into the situation a little further, it makes more sense that I guess, Bob and the owners, sounds like the owners are very loyal to Bob. And, it's actually, as you see, like National Treasure just won the Pegasus. So a lot of top horses in Bob Baffert's barn are doing really well right now. And if you watch our colleague Tim, who has a great video explaining this on the Trust the Profits channel, it's really something that he says that this move of transferring the horses to the barns, like the Tim Yaktik barn, it just hasn't really worked out. There hasn't really been results with that. So, it's an angle that I guess the Bob Baffert and the owners have come up with. It maybe they're just pointing right to the Preakness. It's something. Still a triple crown race, and as far as that, you can have a horse nice and fresh, facing maybe even the Kentucky Derby winner that just is turning around in a couple of weeks. So I think it's just a results thing, and also, there's just a lot of layers to that back and forth between Churchill and Bob Baffert. So, stay tuned. It's something that's gone viral on social media, and our friend Tim at Trust the Profits really explained that well.
Yeah, the fortunate part is losing a horse like Nisos on the trail, but I agree with you. Look at National Treasure. Comes in, wins the Preakness, wins the Pegasus. If you're an owner, there's nothing that you can be sad about with that. Of course, not being in the Derby, that's the race that everyone talks about, everyone wants to be a part of, So not being there as an owner is, you're missing out on that. However, for CDI to go from a 2-year ban to suddenly add in an extra year, to me is kind of like, well, you know what, this is a little bit of unfair. So I'm keeping my horses with Bob. You made the point that transferring them hasn't done well in the Kentucky Derby. So absolutely, you can't, totally disagree with their decision there. And the Kentucky Derby does maybe a lot more bad for horses that aim for that race, right? And messes with their career going into a 20-horse field than it might just sticking on a plan and aiming towards the Pegasus and, the Preakness, and then maybe me and you seeing them up at Belmont at Saratoga this year for the Belmont Stakes. Let's dive into our doubling down for this weekend. And at Gulfstream Park, you've got a whole plethora of 3-year-old races. We're going to start off our daily double with race 11. This is for 3-year-olds. This is the Kitten's Joy Stakes, one of my favorite horses from a time ago, especially going long on the turf. And you've got a race here going a mile and the 16th on the turf. Field of 9, including Noted, who done a little bit dipping the toe in the with the Breeders' Cup Juvenile and running on the dirt, and now switching back to the turf. Where did you end up here, Keith, as maybe your horse on top?
Great. So yeah, I know we're starting with race 11. Always love handicapping these races with you, Colin, especially the big stakes day. So, this sequence really looked pretty straightforward to me, especially with the horse in race 12. But, it's something that I always stress when I was on your show, and I've been on your show multiple times, is you got to look at the probables before you put in a double wager like that. I love the doubles, though, because you can really see what the probable payouts are ahead of time and really make a wagering decision at that point. Because hopefully you've done all the work handicapping, each of these horses. So with that being said, I'm actually going to keep this double pretty skinny. This sequence did look pretty simple to me. So and my first horse that I really looked at was number 6, First World War, for trainer Brandon Walsh. Yeah, this horse really looks tough, as his tries on the turf have been, very good. The 2 efforts on the turf, if you look at that here, I mean, this horse actually broke the maiden at Kentucky Downs. So that's Kentucky Downs could be its own quirky track. So that's pretty impressive that this horse broke its maiden on debut at Kentucky Downs, and then follows that up with an effort in 4th place finish in the Grade 2 Bourbon. That was a very strong field. And what impressed me is this horse had the 12th post that day, second start here, and then finished well, gaining a lot of ground, finished 4th, only losing by a length and a half. It was an impressive run. I just thought, this horse is maturing at the right time. And, as far as the pace scenario, I think it actually works out well with a better post. So really like First World War is one of my horses. And I'll give you my other horse here is actually the horse you just touched on, Noted. This is a horse for trainer Todd Pletcher, who actually has a couple horses in this field. And you get Irad Ortiz, the top jockey aboard, who just won the Eclipse Award, obviously. And seems like this horse has actually had tough trips. So this is for noted and still fires a big race every time. I like these horses that actually can, overcome tough trips. And, I know this horse was overmatched in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, but that was on the dirt. So we're going back to the turf now. And this is the preferred distance. The comeback race last year on December 9th, that was a good stepping stone for this, obviously, for this big event here. And if you look at the competition that this horse has faced at this distance on the turf, especially that grade 2 Bourbon I was mentioning at Keeneland on October 8th, I just, from a class perspective, I really think that this horse, with this, with the Kitten Joy Stakes, that's what the race that we're talking about. I think that this horse could really, fire a big one. And, other than that, I really just think that this horse kind of stood out too. So I'm my first leg of my double. I'm just going to go with 6 and 9 here.
First World War to me was interesting. The horse was competitive on the dirt, so why are they moving him back to the turf? That's what I had as my question mark. Ran a length and a half behind Parchment Party, who we just heard is taking some time to mature a little bit more, correct? Brendan Walsh is only hitting at 3% this meet. So to me, that was like just some warning signs and interesting. Like this horse seemed to be doing a lot better on the dirt. Now they're coming back to the turf and they're going into the teeth of some horses that I think could have some more upswing. Look at a horse like number 1, Hammerstein, who has a win at the distance, who started on the dirt and then went to the turf and improved by 10 points on the Brisnet speed figure. Hammerstein is a horse in the 1 hole who I am extremely interested. Not to mention, we got to give a shout out to Sean Patrick for the sire Oscar Performance, right? Whenever we see Oscar Performance or Preservationist, it's like, Sean, you're in our head, so we'll give him the shout out. So I do like the 1 Hammerstein. And how can you pass on 4 Agate Road? We're going to look at the Brisnet Prime Power numbers here. I always talk about that 10-point spread, right? So you got, when there's a 10-point spread in the Prime Power numbers, the horses that are on the higher end of that are hitting at around 55%. You've got 2 horses here, Agate Road and Noted, who you have on your ticket as the 10-point spread over this field. Now remember, 3-year-olds, those numbers maybe aren't as perfect because they don't have as many races under their belt, okay? But Agate Road is a grade 2 winner. Went to the Breeders' Cup, and I always consider the race after the Breeders' Cup, you're going to see a bounce, right? So this horse runs in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. That's the goal for this horse of the ownership group. It's okay to expect effort out after that to be in a decline. So it goes from a 90 in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile to a 75 in the Dania Beach. Finishes a length and a half as the favorite in second place. I think that with some time and a run back here, Agate Road is one that we're absolutely going to want to have on your ticket. Noted to me, I did a little bit of the circling game on my past performances, and when you get to those longer distances, my concern was that Noted actually maybe is more of a 7 furlong, a mile horse as opposed to going the mile in the 16th. So I'm going to go with Agate Road and the 1 Hammerstein here in leg 1 for Gulfstream Park Race 11 on February 3rd. Now, we all know where we're going next because we have the return of Fierceness, the horse that everyone, I would think, has on the top of their lists for the Kentucky Derby. This horse just ultra impressive in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, of course, trained by Todd Pletcher, sired by City of Light. Look at these past performances, Keith. You got a 101 with a maiden special win. The 77 in the Champagne was on the slop, so losing by 20 lengths. If you draw a line through that and you give him an excuse there, now you want to pay attention if the weather's poor. But getting a 112 here in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. And Keith, these horses behind Fierceness are some of the ones that we expect to be competitors. And look what he does to this field.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, Colin. This horse really just, you throw out that race in the slop, something obviously was amiss that day, just the conditions and everything. But, Fierceness really showed his true, class there as a champion 2-year-old against, like you said, a very good competition. A lot of horses that are, on the Kentucky Derby points, list right now. And with Fierceness, I really think it's a well situated return here for the now 3-year-old. You see, Fierceness has actually been putting in consistent works leading up to this race. And, especially the January 20th workout just tells me that this horse is actually just ready, just very classy. I know it's the layoff and everything, but it was a 1 out of 12 horses and was 59 and a half. So it just tells me that this horse has been training for a while. Now we know these connections, obviously, with Todd Pletcher and the Rapoli stable. We've seen this move before. We saw it last year with Forte. It's a very similar path that that the connections are going to try to take here, hopefully to get into the gate for the Kentucky Derby. And just champion 2-year-old, like you said, what he did to that Breeders' Cup juvenile field was very impressive. They say the City of Light progeny, they actually get better with age. And this son of City of Light, I really just think that this is a nice spot. I really didn't think that this was a strong field, to be honest with you. And just the post, I like the post a lot, could work out a nice trip. And I just think it's an ideal comeback for me. I really wasn't going to try to beat him in this spot. And then I just didn't want to double up and kind of, maybe devalue my doubling down ticket here. So I'm just going to stick with Fierceness. I really think that he's just a single. And, it's something that I really think he's just going to show up and get it done. Just kind of like how Forte did it. Maybe even Forte sometimes didn't even fire his biggest race and would still pull out the win. And, it's interesting to see how this horse is going to run at Gulfstream too. So really looking to to the race, the Holy Bull here on Saturday.
Yeah, I've gotten cute in the past in these situations and tried to talk myself out of, well, this isn't the goal for Fierceness. So, is this the race that he really wants to win? And this is just a prep, right? But when you look at this field, there's not much necessarily behind Fierceness that I think can defeat Fierceness. And on the right here, we want to point out that, as I talked about, as this weekend is huge for Silks owners. This race is 250,000. 1% of that is $2,500 in the Silk reward. And you've got a multitude of owners here who have a shot. Unfortunately, Fierceness is still owned by the Game of Silks. So nobody will be happy with Fierceness winning, but you've got, Gibbs Racing with Domestic Product, who's a horse that they're deciding to take the blinkers off of. Manny Franco had been riding this horse and said that it's probably good if we take the blinkers off of this horse. Maybe he was pulling a little bit too much, and without blinkers, maybe in a better position. So yeah, Fierceness, single for me as well. I can't go anywhere else. But Keith, let's try and maybe give the people here a horse underneath, maybe that they would like. So we got Tour de Force coming up. Is there anybody else in this field that you have interest in?
Yeah, it was a tough one for me to find. I actually looked at the number 1 horse, actually, did well. And believe, yeah, this is the horse that actually raced at Laurel. And, this horse actually gained a lot of ground. Now, I know it's not going to be easy with the rail draw, but I'm just looking for maybe horses underneath. It just, for me, it was pretty cut and dry. And I just thought that it was a slam dunk single. And I'm sure that this Fierceness is going to be a single on, 98% of tickets. So
Yeah,
I think it's something that
take
if
your
you're
money
going to
and
play,
run.
yeah, exactly. Like they say, Pete Aiello says, making 1 to 5 look like easy money, kind of thing. So I just think that if you were going to single Fierceness, especially in other horizontal plays, you really got to get creative and maybe toss out some other A horses and other legs just to kind of create value that way. But for me, it was just Fierceness and kind of everybody else running for minors. So I'm just gonna stick with Fierceness. But the one, I'll go with Hades as my underneath play here.
You're being polite. I think it's Hades, which is the devil, right, or something like that. That's okay. The one
All
I'll
right.
give you is the 3 Otello, sired by Colin. This horse had a tough rail ride. He was swung out and nailed. He got in there in time in the Mucho Macho Man. Had a really nice workout January 26th, going 5 furlongs. Speed figures 89.91. Look, they're not in the ballpark of Fierceness. We'll bring up the prime power number here. I talked about the 10-point spread. We got an 18-point spread in this race with Fierceness. Uh, 92 day off layoff, don't worry about it. Early speed all over the place in this race, don't worry about it. Fierceness is who we're here to see. Fierceness is who's here to really stamp what hopefully will be improvement for his 3-year-old kickoff campaign. Let's take a look at our tickets. Keith, we both are going skinny. We're both singling fierceness. We have $2 tickets here. I'm going to go 1-4 with the 7. Keith is going 6-9 with the 7. As I always like to say, you can't blame us for costing you $2 if they don't hit. But as Keith mentioned earlier, the great thing about the daily double bet is you can look at the will pays and you can decide what is the 6 to the 7 paying versus what is the 9 to the 7 paying. And we always will give you a $1 denomination bet on this show. But in all reality, you might want to do a $20 double or a $30 double based upon what the 1-7 and 4-7 is paying. And maybe that's where you can ideally make some cash if you have a stronger opinion in that previous race. Keith, thanks so much again for joining us on this week of Doubling Down. Where are you going? Have you decided where you're going for Keith's value plays this week yet?
That is something that's a great question, Colin. I'm sure it's on a lot of mind of a lot of people right now. But no, I'm just saying, I'm actually was looking at that today, and it's been fun, just really just going around all the different racetracks and really seeing these connections fire, hopefully at a price. Now, I've been one of my main criteria of the program, the show that I do, is that we're trying to find value play horses, hopefully 5-1 or higher. So yeah, I'm still actually looking at a few cards here, and I think one of the more important thing is I'm actually passing on some certain cards that I feel like are really not chalky, but really hard to find that value. So still kind of in the works right now, but stay tuned for sure.
There you go. Check him out right here on Trust the Profits YouTube page. I'm Colin Sheehan. He's Keith. Like and subscribe. Until next time, this is Doubling Down.